Hi, Ali. Welcome to Gale Force Winds. It's an absolute pleasure to be in conversation with the good people at Computek. You guys are doing great things, and certainly appreciate being right here in Toronto, making all of this happen. Ali, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us what you do.
My name is Ali, and I've been in the cybersecurity industry for approximately 18 years. A lot of people ask me, how did I get into cybersecurity? And like many other folks, I got into cybersecurity when I realized that there are two types of organizations: those that have been hacked and those that simply just don't know it. I simply didn't know that I had been hacked. And from there, 18 years ago, I started building my career in this space. And I teach in this space, I work in this space, sold a couple of companies as well, and done relatively okay for myself. And I'm glad to be teaching and learning simultaneously as well.
It sounds amazing. You're so accurate, right? That those that have been hacked and those that aren't even sure. Tell me about how over those 18 years, what have you seen in cybersecurity? How has it all evolved?
I think there are two major things that you want to be focusing on. One of the things that I often tell my teams in security is that security is not about answers, it's about questions. Once upon a time, when somebody wanted to break into a digital ecosystem, it was always, how do I get in through the front door? Because usually the only digital application that we were using was email, for example. And there was one front door to potentially get into it. Now, with this plethora of applications, suddenly somebody's not just trying to get into the front door. They're trying the windows, they're trying the chimneys, they're trying the side doors. They're trying to spoof their way in, pretending to be somebody that they're not. I don't know, somebody that is here to check your water filter, for example. Don't quote me on the exact statistics, but they say the average user today has about 50 to 50-ish apps on their cell phone. And in enterprise, you're probably using 10 to 20 different productivity apps. Those 10 to 20 productivity apps now open multiple apertures for an attack. So now the first change that has happened is that there are multiple routes of entry. The second thing is that the attackers are not just human-led. With the evolution of AI, with the evolution of bot-based attacks, you can now do, with one attack, you can hit multiple entities because of the sheer power of computing. Computing is great for someone like me because now I can run multiple applications simultaneously and crunch big data sets. I am presumably a good actor. The bad actors have access to such computing times 10. So the volume of the attacks, the veracity of the attacks have changed thanks to the advancements in technology. There's always a good side and a bad side of tech. And unfortunately, we're realizing that with computing power increasing, so too have the attacks.
Ali, that's a fascinating and an excellent explanation of the evolution of it all. When did you first interact with Computek? Tell me the first time you and Computek came into an orbit with one another.
Came into an orbit with one another. Being based out of the Durham region, I met some of their leaders at a variety of local events. And I'll tell you what was the main thing that got me interested in their approach. One of the powerful strengths of Computek is that from a linguistic perspective, their students come from a variety of ethnic backgrounds. Many of them are new immigrants. One of the things that we don't realize that security is not just about technology. It's about people, process, technology, and in that order. Now, when folks have multilingual capabilities, you can use their skills in a variety of areas in security. Let me give you an example. In threat intelligence, one of the domains of security, if you have somebody who can speak English, French, and let's say Arabic, do you realize that they can read through some of the codes that bad actors are sending to each other? They can read through some of the messages that we scan to see if we can decipher any intelligence from it. So for me, that first meeting with Computek, which was early 2023, and then fruition from there, was about really realizing that the nature of the students that they're training are a little bit different than what you would get anywhere else. And they recognize that strength. When an organization plays to their strengths, they know what they are and what they're not. They're destined for success. And they're building slowly, surely, and steadily. And that makes it worthwhile to work closely with them. The second thing is they're well aware of the known unknowns. There are some things that they simply don't know and work closely with community. They're open to feedback. And as you know, you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you learn from just always getting it right. And I find that that attitude places them in a good position, not necessarily to lead cybersecurity education, but certainly feed a very important niche within it.
Ali, I'm so glad that you picked up on that point. that collaboration between industry and academia, listening to the industry needs, listening to the community needs, and then fashioning programs in an innovative manner with agility to meet them
Right.
with speed and ease. Talk to me about the importance of that.
Yeah, I've said this many times before, and I'll repeat it here as well. So my apologies to anybody who hears this for the 10th time, maybe. I've always stressed that in cybersecurity, there's no shortage of cybersecurity graduates. There's no shortage of cybersecurity skilled professionals. But there is an acute shortage of cybersecurity professionals who can communicate well, who can collaborate well, who can engage well. Now, Computek services a niche of the community that may not necessarily have English or French as their first language. So that emphasis on the business communication side and the growing emphasis on it and the realization of how important that is really what places them strongly. You see, in security, right, especially from an industry perspective, I don't have a problem finding tools. I don't have a problem, I mean, budget aside, I don't have a problem automating some of these tools. But where we do face challenges is when you're dealing with a situation, going up to the board and seeking an emergency fund, being able to explain the security impact from an ROI perspective. That emphasis that I'm seeing being placed within Computek is going to place them strongly. It's going to take some time, but they recognize that if they can scale that connection between cyber and business impact, you've got yourself a winning combination, and you've got yourself a subset of students who are well placed to take in both the process part of security, the people part, but also the tech side.
Ali, again, another wonderful explanation of why that collaboration is important. Sure. And I'm also hearing you sort of loud and clear that it's those what were once referred to as soft skills, that ability to communicate effectively, that ability to work, within team settings and things like that, and that we used to put sort of secondary to the hard skills, we call them.
Right.
Well, I think it's actually flipped the other way around. Those 100%. Permanent skills of an ability to communicate are a little bit more important these days than the hard skills of learning technical things, because you would be the first to admit that those technical things are changing rapidly, requiring an understanding of lifelong learning more than anything.
Absolutely. No, I'd second that. And we often, in some of our PAC meetings at Computek, we often try not to refer to it as soft skills, but as essential skills. And it drives a very specific pedagogy. So that is an enjoyable part of the learning element of building a good security program.
Tell me about some of the students at Computek that you've come across in the past.
You typically find the students at Computek fit into one of three categories. Now, I will be very honest with you from a security perspective. You don't necessarily like to operate with checklists. You don't necessarily like to operate with boxes. In fact, you want to burn those boxes. But I find that they fall in one of three of those quote unquote boxes. The first is you will find students who are very tool driven. I didn't say technical, tool driven. Meaning that they can use an open source tool, deploy it, and get you results. These are the doers in security who can sit in a security operations center and can utilize the tools and follow the instruction manual to the T. That is an important piece of security. Now, I will tell you, some of those roles will get automated going into the future, but it is still, for the foreseeable future, a necessary skill. So you do find that. The second category of students that you get is you find the research-oriented folks who look at a scenario and can do what we call reconnaissance. They look at a web application and they can study what are the potential ways this application could currently be breached or breached into the future. And they have the ability to work well with research methodologies around security. And the third that you find are a combination of the two that take intelligence, take some of the tools and act on it. You will see that at Computek, you won't necessarily find pen testers per se or exclusive ethical hackers, but you find a cohort of students that have a well-rounded ability to understand an application sitting on a network. What do you need to do to understand its composition, protect it in the now, and protect it into the future. Now, it's good to know what you are and what you're not. And I find that Computek is constantly questioning that definition, playing to their strengths, and is now setting in a very healthy process of redefining some of those curriculum as well to ensure that it stays current. One of the most important things in delivering security education is to realize that with technology, when you go through an 18-month cycle of education, the technology you started off with is probably outdated. So you need to have the right methodologies to upgrade your curriculum and to facilitate that. And I find that they have those processes that are coming into place. My most enjoyable part of working with the team at Computek is that they don't take a banking model to education. They take a problem-solving approach. It's growing. Mistakes have obviously been made, and they're consistently learning from it. That Paulo Freire problem-solving approach will hold them well for the next couple of years.
I have to tell you, Ali, it's been absolutely refreshing to be in conversation with you, and we certainly enjoy your perspective. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and you play an important role. Awareness is a significant part of security, and spreading more awareness brings more attention. We all have a role to play, and to be a strong people firewall in defending not just our companies, but each other in a very hostile attack climate. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.